Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Keith McChin from Missouri State University. Thanks for coming to my presentation. Let's begin. Today, we're going to be talking about the coach-athlete relationship, and that is defined as a situation in which coaches and athletes' feelings, thoughts, and behaviors are mutually and causally interconnected. The coach-athlete relationship has been conceptualized using a 3+1 C model. That feelings part of the definition is also known as what's called closeness, and that revolves on how much respect, trust, appreciation is within the relationship between a coach and an athlete. Commitment, those are the thoughts part of the definition, where its main component is maintaining relationship over time through the ups and downs of the season or multiple seasons, for instance. Behaviors, that can be conceptualized as complementarity, and that's feeling at ease, responsive, or really how cooperative and collaborative a coach and athlete are with one another. For the purposes of our talk today, we won't be going over the +1C of that model. Within our lab, we did a systematic literature review looking at the quality of the coach-athlete relationship from the coach's perspective. And what we found is that there were over 500 articles or studies, that looked at the coach-athlete relationship, but only 54 of those looked at those with coaches as participants. And although it has been studied around the world, coaches' perspective in countries like the United States, Canada, Brazil, and China, one aspect that's really been left out of the literature is that of race. And we only found one study that specifically looked at race's impact on the quality of the coach-athlete relationship. And also, the majority of what we know comes from elite level coaches, or coaches that coach at the university level or professional coaches, and not so much grassroots coaches. It has been conceptualized as social cultural components as an antecedent in the early 2000s to the coach-athlete relationship. So scholars have thought that things like race and norms and roles in culture do play a role in predicting the quality of the coach-athlete relationship. So therefore, the purpose of our study today is to look at what role does race play in developing quality coach-athlete relationships from the perspective of coaches. Secondly, we want to look at this at the subscale level of closeness, commitment, and complementarity, and what role those individual constructs have when it relates to race in the quality of the coach-athlete relationship. Our participants were 9 high school football coaches from the Midwest of the United States. Average age was about 37 years of age, all males, all identified as Black or African American, all had at least a bachelor's degree, and all but one coach had 10+ years of experience coaching. 2 of the 9 coaches were head coaches, with the rest being assistant coaches. We received Institutional Review Board approvals for my home institution, and while partnering with a local coaching organization, they were able to send out our recruitment material to coaches to participate in this study. Coaches are incentivized with a $25 gift card to participate in the study. To participate in the study, coaches had to identify as minority coach, had coached in the past, and planning to coach this upcoming season. This was part of a larger study, so coaches talked to us via Zoom for 60 to 90 minutes. Following the interviews, we transcribed the interviews verbatim, and then as a form of member checking, emailed the transcript to the participants to make sure that we captured their lived experiences correctly. There were 9 questions that we asked the participants for this part of the study. 6 were general race questions, and you can see a sample one there. Describe to me what role you feel race plays in the coach-athlete relationship. In terms of construct-specific questions, you can see the 3 different constructs of closeness, commitment, and complementarity, and a sample closeness item there is describe to me how the race of an athlete affects how close to them that you are. In terms of data analysis, we used what's known as the transcendental phenomenological research design. And to achieve this, I conducted a bracket interview where I went to the interview protocol and had my thoughts and preconceived notion, bracket out so I can get the true lived experience of the participant. There's a lot more that goes into transcendental phenomenological research. I'd love to talk to you more about that afterwards if you would like. So what did we find? In terms of research question one, we found three themes that really helped explain how coaches had quality coach-athlete relationships. The first theme was navigating identity with the sub-themes there that you can see. The second theme was opportunities and responsibilities with the sub-themes that are there as well. And then challenges had the one sub-theme. While I can't go through all of them with the time constraints we have today, I'll try to highlight some of the high points today. So navigating identity, that was coaches trying to understand the racial history and racial differences within their coach-athlete relationships. And you could see that this concept of navigating the Black experience, where coaches discussed that they were helping their minority athletes understand what it meant to be a Black athlete or a Black male, and they thought that helped with the quality of their coach-athlete relationships. The shared Black experience or explicit comments that coaches talked about, hey, I'm not necessarily helping them navigate, but I can relate to them because of these shared lived experiences that we've had. Contrast that to racial differences, where these were specific things where coaches talked about, I have higher quality relationships with my minority athletes versus my non-minority athletes. And you see Coach Justin's quote here talking about, where I coach, 75% Caucasian. Sometimes it's difficult to see each other's perspective. So because of these differences, coaches talked about bridging cultures, of bringing Black culture and white culture together and trying to develop quality coach-athlete relationship by teaching one another about culture or trying to understand their culture. And you can see Coach Bryce here talking about use of the N word. White students drop it casually. I've tried to educate them that's not a term of endearment. For our second theme, we saw opportunities and responsibilities. And opportunities were things where coaches talked about because of their racial identity, they have the ability to do things like teach life skills or be a positive role model for their athletes. But the big highlight I want to talk about here is the stewardship and representation piece of this responsibility that coaches felt. They felt because there were such limited Black head coaches coaching in these coaching spaces that they had to represent them well and had to steward and cultivate this responsibility because they were one of the few people that had these coaching positions. And you see Coach Kevin talking here, making sure all Black and brown kids feel safe, respected. That's a minority coach's role. Black kids will always gravitate to those coaches more than white coaches. The last one in this research question one related to challenges. These were instances where coaches felt their quality of their coach-athlete relationship were impeded. And you can see here Coach Kevin talking about because he doesn't meet what the standard Black coach is, he's educated, he speaks well, some of his athletes thought he was lying or that he wasn't had these true life experiences of what a typical Black football coach should have had. Contrast to Coach Tiki, who was dealing with some stereotypes, talking about, I would say stereotypes. Like I said before, there's maybe a negative connotation on the Black coach or just Black coaching, period. In terms of research question two, the big thing that we saw were all three subscales. Coaches talked about, hey, there are no differences in the quality of my relationship based on racial identity of me or my athletes. But specifically, to contrast that, they did talk about racial differences with closeness and complementarity. And to highlight that, you can see a complementary piece of racial differences from Coach Steve, where he talked about he can have a little bit more raw, more authentic conversations with his Black athletes, where with his white athletes, it might not get too deep. It's more surface level. And kind of the neutral point there is Coach Tim, who talked about, I don't care what race you are, I'm going to cuss you out. I don't care. So that was kind of the contrast there. So what did we talk about today? We talked about the three themes of navigating identity, opportunities and responsibilities, and challenges. We also looked at the three C's, and we saw that racial differences was a big difference for complementarity and closeness. In terms of building on past coach-athlete relationship literature, one of the sub-themes was maintenance strategies. And on our work, we saw from Ryan and Joette's compass model that we saw conflict management, openness, motivational, and social networks help coaches maintain quality coach-athlete relationships. We also built on Kamari's work of teaching life skills as being part of the quality coach-athlete relationship. In terms of past sports psychology literature, building on Dorsch's work of trying to report on who are we getting data from, and is it just a white sample, or are we getting demographic data from Black and minority populations, for instance? And we built on prior work that looked at racism and discrimination or within coaching circles and how that affects the coach-athlete relationship. Specifically, what we added was more information at the grassroots level related to the coach-athlete relationship quality from the coach's perspective, and the social, cultural, or race component of the coach-athlete relationship and how that affects the quality when we look at it from a race perspective. So why care? We're seeing more high school kids playing football that are African American. So if we have coaching samples that are more diverse, that may help quality coach-athlete relationship and also break down some of those racialized stereotypes that coaches feel that they have within their coaching spaces. In the future, looking at this in other sporting contexts, other racialized sporting contexts, and also dyadic research, where we're getting both the coach and athlete's perspective. So in conclusion, we saw closeness and complementarity were impacted the most by racial differences. Having a diverse staff may help with developing quality coach-athlete relationships and addressing some of those cultural gaps within coach-athlete relationships. Here are my references. Are there any questions?